Things just got a bit more interesting in the secondary with Colorado's latest transfer portal edition.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borber. Today's episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. They help you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So thank you guys for tuning in and making me a part of your special day. Let's talk. First of all, happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. We appreciate you. We love you. Couldn't have done it without you. We're talking about Colorado's new edition, though, and it's one where had it been made or had it been announced, say 3 days ago or 2 days ago, whenever I did my defensive depth chart projection, I think it would have influenced it a little bit. So, if you guys didn't know, Colorado has landed former Vanderbilt, kind of a Miami safety, Savion Riley. He spent this past season or the past couple of years at Vanderbilt, and then transferred to Miami in December. And so you're like, oh, a Vanderbilt guy. Well, let's look at the numbers, because I think a lot of the times we get caught up in what school these guys go to. And one, Vanderbilt's not that. It's a good school. Good academics, not the best football record as of late, but it also produced guys like Will Shepard and Walter Taylor. So I think a lot of people are going to try to downplay this. I wouldn't. He's a sophomore. This past season was the only season where he recorded a stat, and he had a pretty big year, 48 total tackles, and he was just all over the place making plays like that. Didn't have a pass deflection or an interception, so would love to see him get involved in passing game a little bit more, but this is where he gets intriguing. 6'2", which is pretty big. For reference, I think Shiloh Sanders, I think he's about 6 foot or 6. Yeah, he's 6 foot even. And then Cameron Solomon Craig, I think, is below. Let's see. I think he's around 5'11", I would say. He's 5'10". That's what he's listed as. So this guy comes in a few inches taller than both of them. Could kind of help out in the box if needed. Obviously, he's shown that he could be a short tackler. And it is worth noting that when he was at Miami, these were the reports. This is what we were told. He was working with the first team Miami defense. So clearly Mario Cristobal liked what he saw from the Vanderbilt transfer. He had a career high 12 tackles against Florida this past season. He visited Colorado and Georgia Tech, and he also was during his transfer portal process. During his recruiting process, he had offers from or interest from Missouri, Penn State, Michigan. So what does this mean for Colorado? Well, now I look at the secondary, and for how talented they were at the top, I was a little worried about it. They had, and I think that a lot of people kind of overlooked this just because they have Travis Hunter, they have Preston Hodge, they have DJ McKinney, but then it was like, okay, who's behind them? Like, who are the guys that are going to come in when, I don't know, say Travis's helmet comes off, or DJ, his shoe comes off, or maybe he feels a tweak in his hammy. Obviously, we hope no one gets injured, but this is just like hypothetically speaking. Like, what happens? Who is coming in when they're struggling, or when they need someone to come off, or when someone has to come off the field? And so I feel like Colorado has addressed their secondary in a major way. You just look at the kind of guys that they brought in during the portal class this year. They're all over the place. They've been making big moves, I would say, in the secondary. They landed Ivan Yates from Furman, 4-year guy, experienced, a little bit 5'10", a little bit undersized, but he's someone who they are confident in. They brought in Preston Hodge, who's going to start at corner for them. They brought in DJ McKinney, who's going to start at corner for them. He was a starter at Oklahoma State. He had played a lot of quality snaps. They brought in a guy like Herman Smith from Idaho State, played for Coach Prime at Jackson State. He knows what Coach Prime wants, and he's not going to be a starter, but he'll provide some depth. You look at a guy like Savion Riley, 6'2", a safety. They have RJ Johnson, who's also 6'2", a corner. Colton Hood, super fast, 5'11", 188. So they brought in a lot of secondary talent, and I think it makes up for the fact that and it's also worth noting, they have guys like Carter Startmeyer. They have guys that are like a Trevor Woods, who obviously moved down to linebacker, but this secondary is now looking a lot more complete, if you will. I don't want to say it's going to be one of the better secondaries. I do think they have potential to be one of the better secondaries, but I'm glad they went out and got this depth. I think had they stuck with what they had, one injury would have decimated this unit. And I don't think that's like a position that you want to be in. Like, obviously, injuries are a part of the game and you never want anyone to get injured. But I do think that, say, 2 weeks ago, the secondary was looking a little light. So they have a lot of good talent in there. And it's just one of those things where if you're a Colorado fan, I think you have to like what Coach Prime did with this unit. They also have Adonis Forrest, Contra Costa College, the JUCO route. So they brought in a lot of talent. They have Travis J, um, Carter Stottmeyer, who's going to contend for snaps. They have Cameron Simon Craig. Like, they have a lot of guys that I think are going to make an impact. Now, I think this does throw a wrench in the starting safety battle. I think, obviously, I don't think Shiloh's losing a spot, and I think a lot of people are going to be like, of course he's not losing a spot. It's Coach Prime's son. I I don't, it's tough to say Coach Prime would start Shiloh if he wasn't one of the better players. Let's call a spade a spade. Shiloh is one of the better players, so we don't have to worry about that. But there's no reason to play hypothetical. He's a hard hitting guy that's willing to tackle, and he is underrated in coverage, I guess you could say. I think the Stanford game kind of did a lot of people dirty. I think Travis Hunter was one of them. I think Shiloh was one of them where it just was not a good game for them. They had a bad game. That was a game. That was one of those games where you throw it on, you get that tape and you just burn it. You'd be like, okay, we can't learn anything from that game except what not to do. And so I think that was just like a demoralizing game. So I feel like a lot of people kind of hate on Shiloh for his coverage. I feel like he's fine though. But I do think that Cameron Sima Craig his spot could be up for grabs. I think he now has to sort of fend off Savion Riley, because obviously a guy that big with SEC experience, was taking first team reps at Miami, which is obviously a really big program as well. That guy didn't come here to sit. That's all I gotta say. None of these guys come here to sit, and especially some of them, they're probably told, "Hey, this job is up for grabs." And so maybe he plays safety, maybe he can move to nickel. Who knows where? Who knows how they use him? But I do know that he's going to see the field. He's a good get for Colorado. I'm really, really intrigued by how this team continues to build this offseason. You guys comment below. Does he end up starting by week 3, we'll call it? Because even if he's not starting by week 1, does Savion Riley end up starting by week 3? Comment below, yes or no. And if you say no, tell me why. Is there a reason that in particular where you don't see it happening, or you just think that Cameron and Shiloh will just lock it down altogether? When we come back, we're going to be talking about Cormani McClain, the latest on him, and what his journey tells us about just recruiting and everything in general. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for your role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. It helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In any given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. You post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. Again, happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. We greatly appreciate you. Couldn't have done anything we've done without you, quite literally. You guys are so helpful in everything that we've done. By the way, if you guys love sports and you want a new outlet to watch it, I got just the thing for you. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So thank you guys for tuning in. Let's talk about Cormani McClain. Obviously, he is no longer with the program. He is still in the portal, and his transfer portal recruitment, I think, is something that a lot of a lot of people will say is very eerily similar to how his high school recruiting went. Let's just call it that. He's very under the radar. It's very like no one really knows who's involved. It feels like for every time I hear something about Cormani, um, it's uh, it's something different. So I think realistically, the intel on Cormani McClain is he's expected to visit Florida, according to On3, and then that's kind of all we've heard. Obviously, he was a one-time Florida pledge or was expected to sign with Florida, and then flip to Miami, and then flip to Colorado. And so, what does this process tell us about Cormani McClain? What does it tell us about five stars in general? Because I feel like a lot of people are discussing this in the Colorado realm. So I wanted to discuss I wanted to dive into it. So realistically, like I was saying, it kind of reminds me of his high school recruitment where no one really knows what's happening. It's very under the radar, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for him. As long as he finds the right school for him, good for him. Because at one point, which there's nothing wrong with these schools, I think it's just a lot of people were expecting him to bounce back out of Power Five. There were schools like Utah that were reportedly in the mix. There was schools like USF and UCF, Memphis were the schools that those three were like the top three, and now he's going back to Florida. And so there's three things I wanted to kind of point out about this process. One, I think Cormani McClain still has potential. I just think that he has a lot of growing up to do. I think his experience in Boulder was one that showed he wasn't. I think it was the mental aspect of college football that got to him. I don't know if it was any of the physical stuff. I don't like. I think obviously when he played against Washington State, he didn't have that good of a game. He didn't have that good of a game down the stretch against Utah either. But I think it's just one of those things where there's a big mental aspect to college football, and I don't think a lot of people realize this, that even the jump from high school to college is very different. Same thing with the college to NFL jump. And I think Cormani has a lot of growing up to do mentally. I think there's a lot of like mental aspects to the game where like he needs to study more film so that way he could understand certain looks, tendencies of receivers, tendencies of quarterbacks, whatever it may be. That way he is better prepared on the field. Now, because he's a five-star, I think Cormani is going to get a lot of hate. This is the second reason. Cormani needs to do what's best for him, regardless of what other people are saying. So I think a lot of people kind of expected him to drop down to like a group of five school. And while that could be what happens, we still don't know. Florida is kind of like the only school that we've had where it's been confirmed that he's taken visits to so far. So obviously that's a big deal. I think realistically, if he prepares correctly, he could be a really good player. Florida obviously is they're in a bit of sticky situation. They have a really tough schedule this upcoming year. Billy Napier's in the hot seat, so don't know if that's like the best choice in terms of like longevity for him, but he has the potential. There's a reason he was ranked as a five-star. He just didn't meet that potential yet. Doesn't mean he can't meet it at all. And I feel like a lot of people are kind of writing him off, and I still think it's possible. Now, my final point about this Cormani McClain thing, because I do think he has to improve the mental aspect. He has to prove sort of his willingness to buy in, which I feel like goes along. It's all a mentality. I think being bought in is a mentality. I think if if you are making sandwiches like at home or say you work at Subway, wherever you work, if you go there with the mentality that you don't care and that it is what it is, that sandwich is gonna suck. But if you go in there with the mentality that, hey, I'm gonna make the best damn sandwich I've ever made, and this guy's gonna love this sandwich, or I'm gonna love this sandwich, then it shows that you have that determination. I think Cormani McClain needs to kind of find that fire, that switch, flip that switch where it's like, okay, this is what I came here to do. I want to play football. I want to make it to the NFL. I want to be one of the great ones. I want to provide for my family. Whatever his reason is, I want to prove people wrong. He needs to find that, and he needs to channel that into positive energy. He needs to channel that into sort of a productive career, if you will, because obviously it's kind of unfortunate to see how quickly not only things unravel, but how quickly people started doubting him. Like I think he just needs another chance, and so I think realistically, and I think this is more for Colorado fans and just fans in general. The people that are upset about how he left Colorado, you just got to get over it. I mean, he's a young kid. Realistically, he's been slandered in the media for a year now. Not that he doesn't have anything to do with that. I feel like obviously his actions were sort of the culprits, or he was the own biggest suspect, if you will. Just because you can't not be prepared And you can't not be a 5-star and at least not show signs of improvement. And so when Coach Prime is going to get asked about you, and we all know Coach Prime does not pull punches, he's going to answer the question. So I think there was a lot of his statement that people were upset about, and I said wasn't necessary. I think it was just a young kid feeling like, hey, everyone keeps attacking me, and I need to say what I need to say. And obviously, I think sometimes when we're in arguments, or we're going to call it an argument, we're not really listening to the person. We're waiting to respond. And so that felt like okay, this is my turn to respond. It wasn't him going, you know what Coach Prime said about me was true. I wasn't putting in the necessary work. I wasn't doing this. I wasn't doing that. And I just need to be better. No, it was you know what? Everyone's taking shots at me. So I got to make sure I got to get not a shot. I mean, he did get a shot in there, but I got to get my statement, my answer off my chest. And it's like, okay, we don't need to make this a beef. So everyone like back off the Cormani McClain sort of slander. Hopefully it works out for the guy, regardless if it's at Florida, UCF, wherever he ends up. It just didn't work out in Boulder. That's okay. It happens. Not everyone is sort of meant to thrive right away. We've seen guys transfer to other programs to succeed, and we've seen guys just need new starts. So when we come back, we're going to be talking about Colorado's North Dakota State game and why one expert is calling it a mistake. It's winner take all time in NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. Does Jamal Murray bounce back after his heating pad incident after the Nuggets snatched a game from the Minnesota Timberwolves? Does Anthony Edwards bounce back? I think he could. He said he came out flat. I think he's going to come out and light up the scoreboard. I think he's going to light up everything. I think he's going to light up the Nuggets, quite frankly. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me part of your first listen of the day, part of your routine. Shout out to all the moms out there. It's Mother's Day. Hope you guys have a great day. And let's dive in. Colorado, obviously, as we know, they played North Dakota State to open the season, and it's an exciting game. It's a Thursday night game, which is really random. Obviously, it's going to be a standalone game, I would imagine. So it's going to be all eyes on that game, which means there's going to be a lot of eyes on Colorado, whether they win or if they lose, which would be an absolute disastrous start to the season because North Dakota State is always a really good program, even if they have a new coach. Obviously, their new coach left for, I think, the linebacker's job at USC or something like that. But Pete Thamel was talking about Colorado, and he said, I'm very curious to see how this reload goes because the schedule is going to be, a lot different. I think it's completely different Nebraska program that they play early in the year than what we saw last year, and it's actually going to be an interesting test case for Colorado early in the year. And then he goes, well, first of all, they open with North Dakota State, and the associate athletic director who scheduled that game whoever scheduled that game should be fired. That is just negligent, horrible athletic department decision. You do not schedule an FCS game. You can lose. You just don't do it. He said, now North Dakota State might not have been what they were 3 or 4 years ago, but they're still excellent. And they're going to be sound. And they're going to have the great still sort of mid-major competitive advantage of we're talking about college basketball, and that's continuity. But I just thought that this is a game that whoever scheduled this 8 years ago, whoever they are, should be shaking in their boots because that's going to be very interesting. Yeah, I somewhat agree. I think, one, it's risky, but I don't think it's only what you make it, is what I'm going to say. Like, if Colorado loses the game, then yeah, it's very unfortunate that that's how they start off the schedule or how they start off the season. Because starting off this season 0-1, when I think their schedule is built for them to get off hot, and then down the stretch is when I think things could get iffy. But if you start off slow, the schedule is not meant for a slow start. Let me just put it that way. So if they lose, it's like, not a great start. If they win, it's a statement win. And I don't think anyone should take that away from them because I think a lot of people are going to want to diminish the win. If they do win, they're going to be like, it's an FCS program. No, the same people that are going to say North Dakota State's a really good program, which I'm those people. I think North Dakota State is always a really good program, regardless of who's coaching it, who's there. That program is going to be good. So I don't want people to kind of undervalue the Bison. I think realistically, whether Colorado wins or loses, North Dakota State's going to be a tough team. A win would certainly help a lot more than a loss. A loss would probably send social media into a frenzy right away, but Colorado has a chance to make a statement. If they're able to take advantage and make that statement, look out. If they're not, then things are going to get a bit ugly. You guys comment below. Was it a mistake, or should Colorado be worried about North Dakota State? I think North Dakota State is going to be a really solid team. I think that game's going to be closer than I imagine, or than most people imagine, not me. I think it's going to be a pretty close game. I think the line moved again. I want to say Colorado was favored by 7 is what I saw. 7.5. It was 7 on a different betting site. ESPN has it at 7.5. So it's going to be closer than people would like, probably closer than Coach Prime would like, but it's a good test. You don't get better by just beating up on lesser FCS programs. Like if they were to play like, I don't know, the worst FCS program in the country, they're not going to get better that way. It probably would be like a nice little tune-up game before Nebraska, but Colorado likes the challenge. They're going to, hopefully for their sake, not overlook that Nebraska program. Otherwise, it'll be a brutal start to the season. That's what college football is all about. You got to take the field and play the game before we know what actually happens. I appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked On Buffs, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. We have some really cool guests coming up. Shehan Jayaraja of CBS Sports is coming on the show this week. You guys won't want to miss it, and I hope to see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day. Have a great Mother's Day, everyone.